Alright, so we're here, and this is going to be the last video for modeling this guy in Blender. We're going to move on to some UV and wrapping, and then some sculpting, a little bit of painting, and some rendering, just so we can kind of cover all the fundamentals of what we're planning on doing for the troll without the social distancing and the distance learning. So, yeah, what we really wanted to do is just kind of do this last minute cleanup. I'm eventually going to kind of put an eye in here, but I really wanted to start with kind of a little bit of cleanup in kind of these areas. Because you can kind of see we have a few stars still left. We still kind of want to get our ear on here. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to point out right here, you can see there's kind of a 3-star. Now, remember, a star is a vertex, right? It's not a polygon. A polygon is any actual shape, right? Usually we're working with quads, which is a polygon with 4 vertices. Triangles, of course, are with 3. N-gons are with 5 or more, right? More than 4, basically. Stars are vertices. And stars are going to be fairly natural in places, right? There's going to be a 5-star up here. There's going to be a 5-star about here and here. You'll see there's a couple of 5 stars kind of in the armpit area and on the back, right? It's kind of impossible to model without stars if you're going to have branch modeling structures, right? There's necessarily going to be some stars. You just want to make sure that they're at a minimum, right? Only the ones that are necessary, right? We need these to actually get our proper shoulder edge loop in here, right? And to get that corner-core branch structure, right? You can kind of see in the crotch butt area, right? There's some 5 stars there. So stars are okay. You just don't want to have a ton of 5 stars, right? If your whole character model is made of 5 stars, just like if you've got a bunch of N-gons, you did something wrong, right? But there are some necessary 5 stars that are going to be in areas. These stars, we're just going to take advantage of some tricks that we can easily use to get rid of them. So in this case, I'm just going to hit 2, right? Because remember, 2 is our quick key for edge mode. It is right up here, though. Remember, modeling is a good tab to kind of have on. Remember, 4 is your object level, right? Of course, you have your objects and you can control the visibility here, but you can also just hit 4 to go out to the object level. And then, of course, 1 is vertex, 2 is edge, 3 is faces. And they're right there. And in fact, you'll see that there's those modes. And you guys have noticed I've been kind of talking about those more lately. I just want to reinforce these things a little bit because they're basic when we get in there. Occasionally, some of you guys have had problems with the cursor being on, right? When that's on, you'll notice whenever you click, you can't really select anything, it's just your cursor. That's really, you can kind of think of that like your edit pivot. And you can actually kind of go up to here and kind of tell it to go to active element or the 3D cursor itself for your manipulators. And you can even tell your manipulators to kind of go to the cursor also. So believe it or not, just like Maya kind of has some of those abilities to kind of edit pivot and kind of go from world to component and things like that in custom, you do have some decent functionality for that in here. That's it's right around Maya's level, maybe a little bit better. But pretty much that's your controls for those things. But that's your cursor button. So remember, it's these move rotator scales or the one above it. That's going to be your selection, right? That's your selection tools. You left click on that, and that has all of your selection options, including circle select, which is the equivalent of our drag select. If you don't like seeing the cursor, one of the things you can actually do is you can go kind of right up to here, right? You can kind of see like it looks like 2 circles kind of overlapping. One's white, one's kind of like empty. If you click on that little arrow down, you can actually turn off things like 3D cursor, right? This is kind of some of your visibility options. You can turn the floor off. You can turn the X, Y, Z axis grids off. So just keep in mind that, remember, there are actually a couple of visibility things you can turn off and on for stuff. I don't find it that annoying, and you'll eventually want to use it, like we were shown on the arm the other day. So what I want to do is I really want to get in here, and in edge mode, I want to select that edge, right? It's the one in between the 3-star and a 5-star. Now, one of the things we've seen is we have our spin edge tools in here, right? So if I right click, brings up the edge context center menu because I'm in edge mode, and you see there is a rotate edge clockwise, right? This is the equivalent of Maya's spin edge tools, right? Which we haven't used that much yet, right? So Maya does actually have this tool. It's in the edit mesh menu, spin edge. Any of you guys that are working in Maya, if you go to my YouTube channel, which some of you guys have subscribed to already, obviously the Blender videos are there, but there's actually the equivalent Maya videos for this stuff as well, because I did it for my Cogswell classes. So there are actually Maya videos if you want to follow those. We've just been trying to do it in Blender for us because everybody could use it, and Blender's pretty good, and it's everybody can run in it, and it never hurts to see new software. So rotate edge. And you see what that does? Remember, it spins it, right? It kind of doesn't create new geometry. The spin tool does not create new geometry. Remember the hand video showed this off, right? It doesn't create new geometry. It just takes kind of the already existing edge and it tries to connect it to already existing vertices on those polygons that it shares. In this case, though, that's not what I wanted because it's kind of creating that weird shape. So I'm going to right-click again and rotate it one more time. And that's not really what I'm wanting either, so I'll just rotate. And you see it gets us back to the start because that's not actually the one we want to use, right? It's kind of this one. So even though you have the 3 and the 5 star, you have 2 5 stars also, right? So keep in mind that these stars right here, kind of this cluster of 3 star, 5 star, 5 star, it's the one between the 2 5 stars, right? So that's where you have to look at the vertex and count the edges. That vertex has 3 edges. That vertex has 5. That vertex has 5. So it's the one between the 2 5 stars right here. So we'll right click, rotate edge, and you see how there's still kind of a 3 star here, still a 5 star, still a 5 star. Right click, rotate edge, and now you'll see that that 3 star is gone, and one of those 5 stars is gone, and you'll actually see the flow through here is actually really clean. It's all nice quads. So it's one of those things where it's just a little thing like that, but that's really cool, right? So if I want, I can go to 1 for vertex mode, and I can select the vertex, hit W for move it over a little bit, right? And we can just kind of move some of these vertices around, get better shape if we wanted, right? Remember, middle mouse button will allow that to move. If you want to use tweak, right? Hold down left mouse button, it's right there. I've got a quick key set up for it already. And remember, your tweak tool works on whatever selection type you're in. So I could easily just kind of come in here and just kind of tweak some of these around a little bit. Kind of bring them in a little bit more to kind of get that shape a little bit better for us. If we wanted to switch to edge mode, we could, right? 2 for edges, right? And we could easily just kind of bring these back to just kind of find that shape. But you see that spinning really helped to make that edge flow through there cleaner. And it's really one of those easy things to do. It doesn't really take that much effort to do it. So now what we want to do is, remember I set a quick key for tab for my circle select, right? But if you hold down left mouse button up here, they're all right here. Tweaks there. You will have to reference an earlier video. The tweak in the newest versions of Blender actually doesn't work the way I think it should, and the way it did in the 2.8 and 2.81 series. It's not hard to fix though. A couple of my earlier videos, particularly the first video or 2, shows how to actually kind of fix that. You have to kind of delete some of the commands for it and put a different kind of command in. It's kind of the old command it used for the 2.81 series. So if you're finding by default your tweak's not working like this, you have to change it, right? It is kind of a edit preferences thing. Key map, right? Because that's where you're turning this compatible on. 3D view, mesh, and there's your tweak tool. And I ended up getting rid of some stuff, added a new one, kind of typed in, when you do it, it brings this up, make sure this is mouse, type in view 3D select, make sure to click on deselect nothing, and then it'll actually work the way it's supposed to. But circle select is your drag select in here. So 2 for edge mode, and I can just kind of left click drag to select those. And I'm going to hit delete, right? Because remember when you hit delete on your keyboard, it does bring up the delete context menu, right? Now for faces, usually it's fine to just delete faces, but for edges, you want to dissolve edges, right? And you see what happens when we do that is all of a sudden now that 3 star, right, because that was 3 edges coming in, is now a big n-gon, right? And what I want to do is I want to complete this. So I right click, because I'm in edge mode already, right? And I can go to loop cut and slide, because this is our multi-cut tool, right? This is Blender's equivalent to multi-cut. If you left click hold, right, it'll drag. If you just do a regular left click, it automatically puts it in the middle. Now if I wanted to, I could hit W for move. Remember, middle mouse button does view move automatically, so you can kind of make little adjustments to it if you want. But now you'll see that we've kind of got this edge loop kind of going through kind of the corner here. And it's going up into that n-gon, right? If you add an edge loop and it doesn't go into that n-gon that was created, you put it in the wrong place. And it should go up into that n-gon, right? And we want it to the corner of the eye. Now you'll notice it kind of looks like these could connect. Well, that's what we're going to do. Believe it or not, remember, particularly if you're in the modeling menu and you're in kind of a vertex edge or face mode, you will have kind of some basic tools right here, right? And one of those you'll see is the knife tool, right? And of course, if you hold down left mouse button, there's a couple of options for it, but the default knife is fine for us. And you'll notice, particularly if I go to 1 for vertex mode, and when I click on a vertex, you'll notice it kind of highlights it, right? And then we can go up to this vertex. You can do it to an edge, right? So it'll kind of highlight edges, and you can go through multiple. So I'm going to go to vertex. And this actually works better than in Smooth Preview and Subdivisional Surface than Maya's does, actually. I just click on that edge, and then we can hit enter, and that actually finalizes it. So this is kind of Multicut in Maya has the ability to add edge loops, but it has slice, which we saw on earlier projects, at least a lot of you guys did. And even has the ability to manually kind of draw in edges. And that's what this knife tool does. It's the manual edge drawing function, right? So in this case, I'm just going back to my regular selection tools because I don't need that on anymore. And you see how there's still an N-gon here though, right? So I really still kind of need an extra edge loop going through here. So I'm going to right click. Actually make sure you're in edge mode, right? 2 for edges, right? It's right up here. Right click, loop cut slide. And you see how if you just left click, it puts it right in the middle. If you hold down left mouse button and drag, that allows you to slide your edge loop. But you'll notice that loop cut and slide is fundamentally your edge loop adding function for Multicut. And now we can see we kind of have a little bit extra geometry and edge loop for our chin, which is great. It's going to allow us a little more to shape the jawline a little better in a few minutes. And now you see how kind of it looks like these can connect. So we go right back to knife tool, and we can just click on that vertex and that vertex, hit enter, right? Because that'll finalize the tool. And there we go. So you can see basically at the end of the day, once you get used to Blender's interface and the minor little differences and you turn it industry compatible, you actually have a quite particularly with the newest versions of Blender, you have quite user-friendly, excellent modeling tool set. And it actually does quite a bit. So we want to get rid of this one down here though, right? We had that one up here we got rid of, and you can always do a little more shaping to that. But now there's one down here, right? And you can see there's actually 2 down here, a 3-star and a 5-star. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure to be drag those, right? Just left click, drag to select those. Remember, if you hit delete, right, you can dissolve edges. There we go. And then I'll make this a big N-gon. And now you can see that basically it looks like we want to put an edge loop through here and an edge loop through here to connect these up. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So right click, loop cut and slide. We'll kind of put an edge loop right through there. We'll switch to our knife tool, which is right here, right? And then you can left click and it'll highlight that vertex, left click. And you see how it's pretty good at highlighting what it's going to go to. And you can actually take it through multiple, right? There we go. Hit enter. All right. And now, of course, we can just go right click, loop cut slide. You don't even have to turn the knife tool off, right? Loop cut slide. And then you say you can actually do that. Kind of neat, right? Blender in its newest incarnation, I'm finding the more and more time it's anyway, it's actually pretty cool, right? So remember, you don't even have to turn that tool off, right? Don't even have to turn that tool off if you don't want to. You can actually use your context menus and leave these on, which is kind of pretty neat, pretty fast. Now, like I said, I'm going to use that tweet tool, but remember, you guys can always just, grab some edges, W for regular move, right? Remember, if you turn on industry compatible, right, in that preferences setting, right here, you're going to get W, E, and R for move, rotate, and scale, right? You're going to get Alt left for camera rotate, Alt middle for camera move, Alt right for camera zoom. Yes, scroll wheel zooms, that's technically correct, but you just see how it's kind of jumpy. Us professionals prefer Alt right mouse button. All right, middle mouse button, we could just do a little bit of drag slide there. Remember the merge can be a little finicky, so be a little careful with that. Because, like I said, that's kind of the one thing that it kind of works in Blender fairly well, but also kind of doesn't, right? That's kind of one of the areas where I'm really kind of starting to appreciate Blender, the newest versions, but there's still a couple of things that Maya does a little bit better. They're getting pretty evenly matched though right now, all right? So overall, you have all these functions, and of course the tweak tool could be used to do a lot of this stuff, right? Get it set up properly. It's great because you just left-click drag, right? And it doesn't matter what selection type you're in. You can kind of pick whatever selection type. Like I hit 2 for edges, and I can start to bring these edges back. But you see how I don't have to select and then move? I'm doing it all at the same time. That's what's beautiful about tweak tools, right? And they're pretty standard. You're going to find some version of a tweak tool in just about all software, right? A lot of you guys remember seeing this actually on our spaceship. Some of you guys that have actually been with me more than a year definitely remember this on characters and creatures, right? The tweak tool can be really awesome. And so I can bring kind of some of these edges back to kind of create a little bit of a crease there, but I'll also bring some of these back to just kind of define that crease better. You also see I'm just kind of trying to make sure to give a pretty uniform spacing. If these are too close, you get a really sharp shape, right? That's when I say soften and round shapes, that's what I'm talking about, right? Is kind of getting in here and making sure that these aren't so bunched up on each other, and you can get kind of a little bit better kind of softened shape for it, right? So you can always kind of keep going back and shaping stuff. All right. So now that puts us in a position where we can see what's great is we got a little bit more in the corner of the mouth. We actually got two extra edge loops in the jawline chin area, and even in the cheek, the zygomatic arch, right? And those stars are gone. So that's a really, really, really neat trick for actually getting rid of the stars, but adding just a bit of super localized edge loops in the corner of the eye, the corner of the mouth, and kind of through these chin zygomatic arch, cheekbone area. And those are great, right? They really add a lot of what we can do to that. All right, so just kind of a little bit more about that stuff. And now what we want to do is we want to create a quick ear, all right? And this is going to be pretty easy. Remember, if you left click, hold down, right? You hold down left mouse button on the very top guy here, the one that's an orange kind of box with a cursor in it. That's all your selection tools and your tweak tool, right? And in this case, we can just select circle tab, or select circle, right? The default quick key is not tab. I set that. Remember, if you right click on a tool, change shortcut. You can actually add that right there. So it's pretty easy to add your own shortcuts if you want to. In this case, I want to hit 3 to go to face mode because I want to select faces. And you can see that circle select is the equivalent of extrusion for that, right? Or the equivalent of our drag select. In this case, we're just going to do a pretty standard elfin here for this guy. So we'll right click, extrude faces. We can kind of bring this out a little bit. W for move, middle mouse button, kind of bring it up. Maybe R for scale, middle mouse button, because remember, middle mouse button automatically does your view rotate, your uniform scale, right? It scales all 3 axes at the same time. It's that center one, right? But the middle mouse button actually does that for you automatically, whether it's move, rotate. See how it'll do view rotate. And I love that. I'm loving that in Blender. Then of course we do a little bit of tweaking here, right? 2 for edges. I can grab that edge, middle mouse button, move down, grab that edge. And if you don't like this circle select, it's a little finicky. You can always do select box, right? Because that's very precise. Not always as fast though. So usually you'll go back and forth. There we go. A little bit of shaping there. And then of course I can right click, loop cut slide, put one in the middle there. In this case it's already selected for us, so we can just kind of move it around a little bit. Remember though, double clicking on an edge selects an edge loop just like it does in Maya. All right, double click, middle mouse button, bring that in a little bit. In this case I'm going to hit 3 to go back to face mode. And I'm going to use that circle select quick key tab. And then we can right click. Now remember, I did show this on our face. There is something called inset faces in the face context sensitive menu. It's honestly just doing the same thing extrusion does, except it scales. But you see how it actually just creates new geometry like an extrusion? So if you don't feel comfortable with inset, just extrude and hit R for scale. That's all it's really doing. And then let's do one more right click extrude, kind of bring that back in a little bit. Maybe W to move down. And then of course, if we want to, we can do a little bit more shaping. Maybe grab that face, middle mouse button, move it up a little bit. There we go. And then we've basically got some ears on our troll, right? So at this point, what we really kind of want to do is, I feel like adding an extra loop or 2 in the elbows and knees. You always want a little more there, because we want them to bend properly, right? We need them to bend and keep their shape, right? You want to think of kind of those kid straws that have the little accordion in them, right? So that when you bend at the little accordion, it's got those little ridges. It keeps its shape, right? So you always want more edge loops at elbows, knees, knuckles on fingers because those bend like that. So you always want a few more edge loops there. So I'll right click, make sure you're in edge mode, right? 2 for edges. Remember, a lot of this stuff is in these menus here, though, right? So like I said, particularly the Blender 2.8 series, they reworked the whole interface and workflow, and it's worlds better. And it makes what was already a great tool set much more accessible. So if we right-click in Edge Context mode, right, there's our loop cut and slide, right? And I can just kind of put an edge loop there, and then maybe kind of put one there. There we go. And if we want, we could always, double-click just to select an edge loop. R for scale, middle mouse button to kind of make it a little bigger. And now you can see we just have a little bit more to work with here, right? So I can double-click on that. R for scale. There we go. You can always just do a little bit of tweaking, right? And what did I do there? I turned the visibility off for the manipulators, it looks like. Accidentally. In this case, that's okay, because I really just wanted to do view moves for them anyways. All right. So keep that in mind, right? All your manipulators are available. You can add a little bit of extra edge loops in these areas. You can even right-click, and you will notice that there is edge slide, right? And you can actually slide these along the existing surface, right? It's kind of a little bit different than the normal stuff. All right. So there we go. Just kind of get a little bit extra loops in there. Really feel like I probably could use one more in there too. Cut the slide, put one there. There we go. And of course, you could always adjust the shape as you go along. But this will give you a little bit more to kind of work with in these areas to just kind of get any shaping you might want it to get a little better in there, right? There we go. Let's grab those two, bring them out a little bit. Never hurts to add a little more on the knee, right? So kind of add a little extra there. There we go. Get a little more in there. And of course you can keep refining the shape. It's always a good idea to get as much shaping as you can done at these earlier stages, right? It's like right now I can grab these and hit W for move, bring them forward a little bit, just to kind of give that leg a little more curvature. Sticks out a little bit more. Can always bring these kneecaps out a little bit more, right? So don't be afraid to kind of do a little bit of that shaping as you're kind of working, just to kind of get that shape closer to what you want it to be, right? So always a few extra edge loops in your elbow and your knee never hurt. They can allow you to do a little more shaping. I really feel like I could probably even use a little more in there still. But as you work, you just kind of tweak that shape a little bit more, right? It's kind of one of those things where just keep working on shape. All right, that'll work well enough. I'm not worrying about making this super perfect. All right, let's get there a little bit more. There we go. All right. Remember, just double clicking selects edge loops just like it does in Maya. I don't know what I did to turn those off. Oh, actually, I know what I did. I hit spacebar. That runs animation in your keyframes in Blender, and that sometimes gets in the way of other stuff. My bad. It's where my Maya instincts and Moto instincts take over a little bit for some of its quick keys. But always extra edge loops in those areas. Now we're getting to the point where we really kind of want to smooth this whole thing up, right? Because we've got a pretty good base mesh here in terms of everything we want it to be primarily done is done. But if we kind of go over to the blue, right here, right? You'll notice if we turn that off, it's really blocky in low res. We were building this because we knew we were going to smooth it, right? Remember, don't work in smooth preview unless you're planning on smoothing it eventually later on. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that there is a viewport control in the, remember the blue wrench is your modifiers. That's where your mirror modifier is at, right? You can add them through here, the add modifier button, right? Subdivisional surface for your smooth preview, but also mirrors in there. And we can keep mirror on, that's fine. But you'll see the bottom one is your subdivisional modifier, right? That's your subdivisional modifier. And we want the viewport 1. What you can do is you can actually hit, let's see here, what do we want to do? Oh, Mineta mode, that's fine. Hit 4 to go back to object mode, and then hit apply. And you'll see that that subdivisional modifier is gone now. And if I go back to 3 for face mode, we now have officially smoothed this bad boy, right? Now, I might want to pull those apart a little bit, right? Because, you know, it might do that a little bit, so you have to be a little bit careful, right? Like I said, this is kind of one of the slightly annoying things, honestly, about Blender, is its mirror modifier isn't horrible, but it's far from perfect or ideal. So you might want to be a little bit careful about that when you're kind of doing this. So I might even go back a few steps here before I apply that, see if we can get it. Maybe turn the merge off for the moment. No, it's not going to really work for us. I think we can apply it. Yeah, we'll still apply it. If need be, we can always go back and then fix that a little bit later on. But this is going to be one of the minor drawbacks to that. You do have to be a little bit careful with this kind of stuff inside of Blender. It's kind of a little bit annoying. Remember, you can always turn your modifier off, your X modifier off there, if you need to kind of get in there and see stuff a little bit better. It is kind of, like we said, one of those slightly weird things here going on. You can kind of see these faces are just behaving themselves a little bit weird because it's kind of stretching those. So that's kind of where you just have to kind of come in and fix that up. Or you might even just kind of, we might even just delete this modifier, right? Remember, you can just click on the X to get rid of that modifier. And then we could always just maybe go to 4 and re-add that mirror modifier. Make sure to give it enough of a merge limit to kind of sew those up a little bit. No, okay, we're still having an issue there. Alright. That's going to be fun. Alright. Remember, if you turn this little triangle on there, it shows both sides. But you can kind of see what's happening there is there's just a little bit too much overlap from kind of this center edge loop there, right? And this is kind of one of those drawbacks a little bit. So we'll hit R for scale, and what we can do is we can always kind of scale those kind of back towards the 0 there a little bit, and you might find that that starts to help a bit more as we kind of just pull these around a little bit. But this is kind of one of the minor drawbacks to the way Blender does this stuff a little bit. And you know, I'm not as much of an expert in this as I am in mine. So we'll kind of bring these over a little bit, and you see how they can slowly start to kind of pull that apart. So keep in mind that this is one of the minor drawbacks to how this is going to work. So be a little bit careful with that kind of stuff, right? This can be one of the things where we could actually bring up our sculpt mode, right? We saw it for shaping before. And we could always actually switch to, let's see, the smooth tool by default. We can just kind of smooth out that shape a little bit, right? So if need be, you can always kind of come back in here and just kind of find those, maybe some of those areas that were being a little bit troublesome. And you can always come back in and smooth them out. So remember, there is actually a sculpt mode 5. And you can see that it actually helps a lot for kind of cleaning that up. All right. But the nice thing is you can always get rid of your modifiers. That one shows the wireframe on both sides, stuff like that. And then the last thing I usually do at this stage, and you now see this is actually our good low resolution, is we'll just come in here and just kind of add some extra loops in for the knuckles, right? And this can be one of those things. Remember, you can always go to 3 for face mode, select some faces. F does frame selection when you turn industry compatible on. So F, just like in Maya, will frame whatever's selected, so that way you can kind of select the view on the hand. And then we'll just right-click, and we'll, let's make sure we're in 2 for edge mode. Right-click, loop cut slide, and what we can do is we can just kind of add in a few extra edge loops here, kind of at the knuckles. I could double-click on that one to move it a little bit. Loop cut and slide. Loop cut and slide. There we go. And you see how we can kind of start to get a little bit more of kind of the actual knuckle shape in there, just through a little bit of adjustment of adding some edge loops, right? Loop cut and slide, kind of put one there, loop cut and slide, there we go. Double click on that edge loop, middle mouse button just to get a little bit of that. Loop cut and slide, loop cut and slide, kind of put that one there. Remember, double click in edge mode, there we go. And the nice thing is most of this stuff you guys know from the previous modeling we've done, right? I'm just repeating myself. Loop cut. Remember, hit right mouse button, right? While you're in edge mode, it brings up the edge context menus. It is right here though, loop cut. All right, and you can assign your own quick keys. So it is actually right there also. But right click, loop cut slide, and I can put one there, loop cut slide. There we go. Double click on that one. Remember, double left click on an edge will select an edge loop. And then you see how we can kind of add in a little bit of extra kind of edge loops to kind of create knuckles. Just like we kind of added a few extra edge loops in the elbows and knees, we can add a few extra edge loops in the actual knuckles as well to kind of finish this off for us. All right, I think that'll be a great place to stop, although I think maybe I'll go back to this one really quick and just do his apply. All right, so we'll just hit apply on that one. And then if we hit 3, we can see that that's now in low res also. And at this point, this has gone long, so I'll probably stop now.